Rachel. I wanted to pop on and do another video about my solo trip to Japan this summer. Specifically, I wanted to talk about Tokyo because let's be real, Tokyo is literally on everybody's bucket list when they come to Japan, and it really is a fantastic city to visit by yourself. Now, when I first arrived in Tokyo, I won't lie, I was a little overwhelmed because there is just so much to see and do. It's crazy. For example, I live really close to Manhattan. I'm only about an hour or so away by train. And Tokyo is, I think, 3 times as large as New York City. So, of course, it's really easy to get overwhelmed by all the incredible places to go. But it really is truly an experience when you're traveling by yourself through a city that big. I personally loved it, and I highly recommend that everybody spend a few days in Tokyo when they come to Japan for the first time. With that being said, I'll talk a little bit about the different aspects of Tokyo I've loved, as well as some tips. And just as a reminder, if you're enjoying this channel, make sure to subscribe. I have a lot of other Japan videos, and then I'll have more videos about France coming out in the near future because I am going to France pretty soon, and I'm super stoked for that as well because I love France. And yeah, if you're a fan of solo travel like me or just want to push yourself outside your comfort zone more, I would love if you follow along for the ride. So, with all that said and done, let's talk about Tokyo because that's really what you're here to learn about. First and foremost, when you arrive in Tokyo, there are two major airports that most flights come into. I was lucky to fly into Tokyo Haneda, which is much closer to all of the central neighborhoods, but really you'll be fine flying into either one. And if you have an iPhone or other smartphone, using Google Maps is super helpful for getting around. I know I was a little nervous about taking the subway, but really it turned out not to be a huge deal. So, Tokyo is a very massive city, like I've said, and navigating the subway can be a little overwhelming if you're fiddling with the machines. So, what I recommend you do is downloading a card ahead of time. So, for my trip, I used this Suica Card, I think is how you say it. I'm probably mispronouncing it. But if you have an iPhone, you're able to add it to your wallet ahead of time, and it does make a really big difference. And not only can you use this transportation card in Tokyo, but you can use it in all the major cities. I used my card in Kyoto, in Osaka, and Kamakura for all of the buses, the ferries, just everything. You can't use it on the bullet train. For that, you need a separate ticket, or if you have the JR pass, you're free to do that as well, I think. I personally didn't use the JR pass because prices have gone up significantly. There's been a lot of chatter about it. If you do a quick search online, you'll find it. So I just did point to point tickets. But really, having this Suica card in Tokyo made a huge difference because I didn't have to fiddle with the machines at all. And it's really beneficial at rush hour. You could just go in and out and you don't have to worry about it. Now, unfortunately, I think this card is only available for iPhone users. I don't think you can put it on your Android. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if you do have an iPhone, definitely take advantage of the digital cards, especially because I was talking to a couple of my friends who live in Tokyo and there is a chip shortage. So definitely take advantage of the digital card if you have an iPhone. It will make a huge difference. As for where to stay in Tokyo as a solo traveler, I spent the majority of my trip in Akusa, which is a beautiful historic neighborhood that's still very centrally located. Now, if you're more of a nightlife person, perhaps this isn't the best option for you, but I absolutely loved it here because it was serene and peaceful. I could go out and explore during the day and walk around at night, and it was a very good home base to have. But of course, your mileage may vary. There are so many neighborhoods to choose from, and you have to go with what suits your needs the best. So, speaking of neighborhoods, something to keep in mind Tokyo is massive and everything is pretty spread out. So, for example, to get from my hostel from Akusa to Shibuya, it took about an hour on the metro. So, you do need to factor in those transportation times and make sure that your itinerary makes sense. Otherwise, it's really easy to burn out. And that also goes for day trips as well. For example, I did a day trip to Kamakura, which was amazing, but it did take a little more than an hour to get out to the seaside. And so, even though the public transit is great, it goes absolutely everywhere, you do want to take those transportation times seriously because if you're using cabs between all of the things you want to see and do in Tokyo, you can rack up a big bill very, very, very quickly. So, that's just something that you need to keep in mind as you're planning your itinerary to Tokyo. As a solo traveler in Tokyo, you also don't want to be nervous about doing day trips. Tokyo, there is so much to do, but it's still beneficial to get outside of the city and see some of those smaller areas set in nature. For example, I love Nikko, I love Kamakura, and both of those are very feasible day trips to do from Tokyo. And don't be afraid to do them on your own. There are an abundance of connections out to both of those places, so you don't have to set up a guided tour ahead of time unless you want to. And trust me, I get lost on a regular basis at home and I was still able to pull it off. So you'll really be just fine if you want to do any day trips outside the city. All right, so next I want to talk about one of my favorite topics in the world, which is shopping. I love shopping as a solo traveler. I think it's because nobody can judge just how much I put on my credit cards, which is another topic for another video because it can get kind of bad. But Tokyo really is a shopper's paradise. And I know in the United States, where I'm from, the mall scene is kind of dead. Like, I'm showing my age here, but malls were a really big thing in the 90s, but they're not really as much of a thing anymore. However, if you go to Tokyo, you cannot miss the shopping malls. They are incredible. As for specific recommendations, I absolutely love the shopping in Ginza. You can find everything from luxury items to stationery. I also recommend going to the Pokemon Center, of course. A lot of solo travelers in Japan absolutely love the fact that it's a callback to our childhoods, whether it's Pokemon or Nintendo. Even if you don't buy anything, it's just the sheer joy to walk around and embrace your inner child again. And obviously, I would be amiss if I did not mention Don Quixote, one of my favorite stores in all of Japan. The only problem with that is you will leave with a lot of stuff, and you may need to bring an extra duffel bag with you for all of your souvenirs. Next thing I want to talk about is safety. Tokyo is very, 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 very safe. I've never felt so safe in a major city. I went around by myself at 4 in the morning because I was jet lagged and went at ramen, and I didn't feel bothered at all. It was amazing. So, your physical safety really isn't too much of a concern in Tokyo. Now, I will say when you're going out at night to some of the nightlife districts, some of the bars have touts in front of them and they'll try to get you to come inside a specific bar or establishment. Just don't do that because 9 times out of 10, it's a scam. I was on a food tour and the tour guide told me that he actually fell for this scam as a local, and the person wouldn't let him leave the bar unless he paid a lot of money for one drink. So just remember the golden rule when you travel by yourself, which is anyone who's not leaving you alone and being really persistent is probably somebody who you don't want to associate with anyway. And you're allowed to be rude to somebody who won't leave you alone. Don't feel bad about ignoring people if they're trying to goad you into a certain bar. I mean, you don't have to listen to them. But overall, safety in Tokyo is not really a huge concern. The people are very nice. I've always felt very at ease and relaxed. I can't think of another city where I would just wander into a random alleyway at night and not be remotely bothered by it. It's truly wonderful for a solo traveler to have that great urban experience with the nightlife and the museums and the food and not have to worry about their physical safety so much. It's really great that way, and you'll definitely enjoy the safety element of Tokyo when you do visit. The only thing I will say about safety in Tokyo is make sure that your feet are safe and happy. I was definitely walking over 20,000 steps each and every day. So wear shoes with good support, otherwise your feet may really regret it. And also, especially if you're traveling in the summer, make sure that you are staying hydrated and not just drinking sake the whole day because that could end very poorly. So, plenty of water, comfortable shoes, and in the summer, double the water and sunscreen. Make sure you have that sunscreen on your face because it will keep you from getting scorched, which is super important. One more aspect of safety that I do want to talk about is Tokyo is great for going out and exploring at night, but just keep in mind that the trains do not run 24 hours a day. The last train stops a little after midnight, so make sure that you plan your evenings out accordingly. And this is also one of those times where I do recommend getting a taxi back. The taxis are always available. But if you meet a lot of people out and want to do something super fun, karaoke is also another option if you miss the last train. Next, I want to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that is food. I absolutely love the food in Tokyo. It was divine. And what's really cool is Tokyo is one of those places where you really don't have to worry about having a table for one. From the street food all the way up to Michelin star restaurants, you can enjoy counter seating, and it's perfectly normal to dine alone. I saw so many people just eating by themselves, and it really was a breath of fresh air as a solo traveler to be able to enjoy everything without the stress of that table for one and feeling like you have no friends. Now, granted, I know, I get it. I know that most people aren't like judging solo diners at a restaurant, but still, I prefer counter seating. And I was glad there was a lot of that in Tokyo. And it just makes life a little bit easier. When it comes to fancier places like Michelin star restaurants, you definitely want to make a reservation in advance, even if it's just counter seating, because they are reservation only. However, for most of the restaurants, you can just walk up to the counter and enjoy a fantastic meal. Tokyo has very high standards as far as food safety and preparation goes, so you don't have to worry much about that, even if you're mostly eating sushi. I ate all of the sushi and I didn't get sick once. Furthermore, there are a ton of food tours available to choose from, so if you do want to make some friends while traveling alone, there are no shortage of food tours and they're also a lot of fun as well. Those are just some general travel tips for traveling by yourself in Tokyo. I'll link my blog post all about solo travel in Tokyo with more specific recommendations down in the description. So check that out if you want more info. And of course, you're also free to ask me any questions in the comments section as well. And I'm excited to see you all for the next one. Have a great time in Tokyo. I'm so jealous that you're going, and I really hope I can go again sometime soon because it really is one of my favorite cities in the world. And there's just so much to see and do that one trip doesn't do it a justice. So I'm hoping to go back one day. So take care and happy travels to Tokyo. Enjoy.